We set this audacious goal of 200 billion by 2025. People told us we were crazy in 2016 when we put that ambition out there. We've actually reached 1.5x that, and we've hit 300 billion. And so it's just reflective of this incredible economy.
Indonesia e-commerce still, I think, is larger, about the same size as all of India e-commerce. And yet the attention tends to be a little bit veering away from Southeast Asia. But this is actually a real economic powerhouse, I think, for all of Asia Pacific.
Southeast Asia as a region, as we think about digital economy adoption, we're not playing catch up anymore. In many ways, we're leading the digital adoption. We're writing how digital economy, how digital adoption could look like for a population and demographic like us.
Welcome to the Analyse podcast, the premium podcast dedicated to dissecting the pulse of business, technology, and media globally. I'm Bernard Leong. This is the 10th anniversary of the eConomySEA report 2025, and I have the honor to actually cover with the speakers for 4 years, and this will be my fourth, but it's your 10th year. We will explore Southeast Asia's transition from a digital decade to an AI-powered future. In a world shaped by macro shifts, AI innovation, and cross-border collaboration, what is going to happen? So with me today are the three voices behind the report: Sapna Chadha, Vice President Southeast Asia and South Asia Frontier, Google Asia Pacific; Florian Hoppe, Partner, Bain Company. Good to see you for the fourth time. And Cassie Wu, Director, Southeast Asia at Temasek. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Right. Cassie, we're going to start with you first because you're new to the podcast. So can you briefly introduce your role at Temasek and your coverage of the Southeast Asia ecosystem?
Yeah, hello everyone. It's very excited to be here. I'm Cassie Wu. I'm a director with Southeast Asia investing team with Temasek, where I help to lead our investment activities across the region. I spent most of my career in investing in technology globally, so frankly, very excited to see how innovation and entrepreneurship is shaping the digital economy in this region.
So I think for all of you, over this 10-year journey of the eConomySEA report, what has been your most memorable moment or insight, or what do you think that the project actually represents for the region? I know that there are many people behind the scenes who help you to put together the report. Every year is as detailed as possible, and coming through this report for the last 10 years is really a pleasure for me. Anyone who wants to start?
Well, I think we have to start, if I can. Though Florian will probably tell me I'm stealing the thunder. But the thunder of this report is the fact that none of us expected us to overachieve on our goals. We set this audacious goal of 200 billion by 2025. People told us we were crazy. In 2016 when we put that ambition out there, we've actually reached 1.5x that. And we've hit 300 billion. And so it's just reflective of this incredible economy. And we say when you bring a whole ecosystem together, it's been so many things that have worked to allow us to get there. But it's kind of nice when people tell you that that's too ambitious, and then you can hit the goal.
It's important to think big, I guess. Florian, any reflections?
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing for me about this report is that it's actually still around 10 years later. If you think about the fact that we've had 10 years running now of putting a report out like this, and there were years in between where I was thinking, well, is this going to keep going? Do we actually have something to talk about? And turns out the answer was yes, because this is an incredibly diverse and interesting region. And we've literally found something interesting every given year to dive deeper on. In fact, we've got a long list of topics for next year, so I'm actually quite excited to continue this to the 20th anniversary.
Wow. So, Cassie, how about you then?
Look, what really is memorable for me is probably not a single number or a milestone that we have hit. It's really what strikes to me is really how resilient, candidly, the ecosystem is. And so I feel like every couple of years, the world throws us a challenge, right? We have capital, a lot of capital inflows. We also have capital tightening. We have COVID. Now we have geopolitical tensions. And I felt like every cycle, the ecosystem just come out to be stronger. And, a couple of years ago, we have experienced high interest rate. We continue to be in high interest rate environment. Capital is tightening. But when we kind of looked into the profitability of the ecosystem as the companies pivot from growth to profitability, it has more than doubled in the 2-year time frame that we looked at. And also, I remember, as Sapna mentioned earlier today, when the report was first launched, there were so many obstacles for digital adoption, including cashless payments, so on and so forth. Today, that is actually a landmark, a signature of in terms of how advanced the digital economy really is. So I think, to me, the most remarkable is really how resilient and how adaptive the ecosystem is, and how we came out stronger, frankly.
Can I add one more?
Yeah, please.
The other memorable moment for me when we knew the report really mattered was when the ASEAN Secretariat said, can you please include all of the markets of ASEAN into the report? Because this is the report of the economy in the region, and it's become it's one of the most downloaded reports, which is cited more than any of us ever expected as well. But when they asked for that, and then we said, well, we have to deliver. It's our 10th year, and so let's include all of ASEAN.
That is a great hit, because I'm going to ask you this question. As the eConomySEA report has now hit the 10th year, you actually now expand your coverage from the Southeast Asia 6 to now the ASEAN 10, right? Any new insights or market dynamics that have emerged? Now you include the broader region for the first time.
I would say probably no in terms of new insights. What I would say is that this is important for us to do because this is a unified digital powerhouse when the region works as one. And ASEAN, we actually did a preview of the report at the ASEAN Summit recently, right? I think when you talk about things like regional trade, QR interoperability, which is now in 8 out of the 10 markets, 10 out of the 10 markets have national QR interfaces. And so I think this is what's important, is that this is all working in tandem. In terms of insights, you'll see similar insights, right? The way that e-commerce is growing, the way that payments has grown, lending being the bulk of financial services. So I would say there wasn't any huge area that's different than the rest of the region. But we're hopeful that the ASEAN 4 will see tremendous growth over the next several years.
Cassie, any thoughts on now the C6 have gone to the ASEAN 10? Or maybe Florian, any additional things you want to add on?
Well, I think what Sapna said was right. I think it wasn't a big delta on total market size. I think about 2% more on GMV from those countries. I think what is important is there is a big base of additional consumers here in ASEAN that actually isn't as developed. And I think ASEAN can only be successful. We spent a lot of time on this in last year's report and talking about the digital divide even within the ASEAN countries. ASEAN can only be successful if at the end of the day everybody comes along. And that's really the uplift that as a region we need to achieve. So these countries are additional growth potential, additional market potential, and we'll have to unlock for ASEAN to the full potential over the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I think importantly, it really just put a spotlight in terms of ASEAN 4. And as we think about, actually we have 11 countries now. And as we kind of continue to track those progress, we felt like a lot of similar trend lines have been observed in those countries. And there's actually a large population for digital economy to continue to penetrate.
So looking back, right, are there any surprising or underappreciated insight that have emerged looking back?
I would say the thing that everybody underestimated and still underestimate is the AI potential of this region, which is a big part and focus of the report. I think when I tell people that we see on Google, right, through insights and search behavior, that there's 3x or 3 times the interest in AI in this part of the world than elsewhere, that is surprising to everyone, right? So and we're seeing it in urban areas, we're seeing it in rural areas. We're seeing interest in multimodal AI. We have 5 out of the top 20 countries. This is where that interest is coming from. And that comes from this adoption that happens really quickly here. I think we can talk about 10 different areas where Southeast Asia is leapfrogging. Video commerce is one of them. And it's huge, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. But I think the AI interest, right, emerging economies can take off when it comes to AI. And so I underestimated the opportunity myself.
Yeah.
Any other things to add?
So, I mean, for me, the underappreciated insight here is actually Southeast Asia itself. I mean, the whole report is always about Southeast Asia because obviously we want to profile what's happening in this part of the world. What we don't profile is how this stacks up to the rest of the world. And if you think around simple data points that like Indonesia e-commerce still, I think, is larger or about the same size as all of India e-commerce. And yet the attention tends to be a little bit veering away from Southeast Asia. But this is actually a real economic powerhouse, I think, for all of Asia Pacific. And so continuing to profile this, giving it relevance and presence, I think is critical to make sure that this region continues to attract investments and actually continues to get to the potential it deserves.
And for me, I think, similar along what Sapna mentioned, I think it's the underappreciated fact that, Southeast Asia as a region, as we think about digital economy adoption, we're not playing catch up anymore. In many ways, we're leading the digital adoption. So Sapna mentioned about video commerce is already 25%. It's grown, 2.5x over 2 years. Also, in terms of developer, the robustness of the creator economy, the developer ecosystem, collectively, Southeast Asia gaming developers has been launching the most downloads globally. And I think in many ways, we are not catching up into digital economy. We're actually, in many ways, we're writing how digital economy, how digital adoption could look like for a population and demographic like us.
So I guess if you look back, what are the most defining inflection points in the digital economy of Southeast Asia over the decade? Is it like, the digital financial services? Is it video commerce or something else that maybe we have not picked it up? Maybe most readers only read the summary, but they didn't read through the whole 200 pages of the report, and you wish that they would have read it.
Yeah, I think the key thing I would call out is just the if you think around some of the key stage gates of the digital economy. I think it's easy to forget and underappreciate all the pieces that have to come in place for this to take place in the first place. If you think around the big telco infrastructure built out in the kind of early 2010s or thereabout, when we hit the rise of 3G, 4G networks, when all of us for the first time realized what it was to actually surf on the internet without the BlackBerry and with more than 2G speeds. On the back of this and the unlock on smartphone penetration, which only went kind of north of 50% around 2010, and then actually kind of rise of very fast digital experimentation adoption mindset of the population here, which I think has been a key driver of success for a lot of these digital business models that emerged over the years. COVID and all that was really just a catalyst to what I think would have happened anyway, and has been a key driver of growth for Southeast Asia.
I think of two. We talked about how cash is no longer king a couple of years ago.
That was a very great quote.
And so it has completely inverted. When we started this report, 60% of digital payments was cash, and now that has inverted. 60% are digital. And the other thing that really I think we talk a lot about, and it's probably a good segue to Cassie, is around the pivot to profitability. The pivot to profitability was a major inflection point. Right now you have businesses who are looking at objectives very differently. There is a demand on them delivering faster. And I think that's created a much healthier ecosystem for everyone, right? You're seeing businesses thrive, and they're succeeding. And when the need for stronger exit pathways are the need of the hour, I think we're in a really good place. But we saw that pivot a few years ago, focusing on profitability. And that we see that in the revenue growth of the report. We added revenue a few years ago to the report in terms of tracking. Before that, we were just tracking top line, right? Which was the GMV. And then we added revenue. And the reason for that was we wanted to show the health of Southeast Asia. And revenue it's grown 11x in this last decade, and it's grown faster than GMV, which is what we want to see.
And I think there isn't a particular moment as we see sort of in terms of inflection point. But frankly, it's really how collectively the ecosystem has really matured and flourished. And Sapna mentioned in terms of the ability of the companies being able to generate very sizable profit pools. And as we look into, candidly, if you look at the companies, the large platform companies already listed today, they are growing, and they are growing the profit pool, and they have been beating expectations. So I think that really is a inflection point, from the perspective, from validation point almost, right? In terms of actually from the overall ecosystem standpoint, is growing, is maturing, and is becoming more healthy. And as we think about, it really paves the way for the next generation of founders as they build the AI-first companies.
So I'm going to now move back to the economy Southeast Asia report this year, 2025, and we will talk a bit about ASEAN's AI future. I think I'm going to take some key takeaways from the report in 2025, with thanks to Notebook LM and a couple of Gemini prompts. So I think the digital economy grew to about 7.4x in GMV and 11.2x the revenue over the past decade. I think we have discussed the inflection point. So one of the themes I picked up this year is the resilient amid headwinds. I think inflation, tariffs, and funding slowdowns. Despite that, this region is still expected to surpass 300 billion in GMV by year end. What's the key factor that's explaining this ongoing growing momentum in the market?
I mean, this is where the consumer is, the story of the consumer in Southeast Asia and that leapfrogging is incredible. You see, when we started this report and to where we are now, we've added 200 million new internet users. And to put that into perspective, that's adding 1.6 million internet users every month for the last 10 years. You now have this economy that has grown by users, but they've actually rewired it. And you see that 3 in every 5 users is shopping online. And you see the rise of video commerce as well, where 25% of e-commerce is now video. And you don't see this kind of behavior or growth anywhere else in the world. It has grown 5x in the last 3 years. I think last year when we were here, we were like, wow, this is large. And now it's even larger. And this, what we've seen is that there's almost 3 million sellers that are engaging with video. And a bulk of them are doing live video. The top 1,000 sellers are doing, I think 80% of their videos are live. So this is emerging as a new way for businesses to drive value and in a way that's driving trust, right? And so I think when you have growth of the consumer online, you have a growth in trust, you have an ecosystem that's using new tools and capabilities faster than ever before. All of these things lead to the growth that we're seeing.
I want to follow up on the e-commerce question specifically for video, right? Because this creator-led commerce with live streaming, which I think is much more, it's a big phenomenon in China and East Asia and now to percolate it into Southeast Asia. How is it redefining how products are being sold? How would you see, like, say, the shifts will play out in terms of what do they mean for, say, platform, brands, and consumers? I think Google has a very big landscape in the advertising side. How are you thinking about it?
Yeah, no, obviously we're spending a lot of time on this. We've seen this has started in certain categories first. Beauty, fashion, and accessories took off, but the research and the report this year talks about the expansion into electronics, but into home. Essentially, what is it that you wouldn't want to buy with somebody's recommendation? Recommendations are powerful. And so we're seeing this expand across, which means we need to be ready for this not to be in niche spaces, but this will be across the board. The good news is that YouTube has content in kind of every category. And we're seeing people come, right, to find their creators or to find out how to solve a problem that they're having. And so and shopping is a problem fundamentally, right? Like, what do I need to buy is a challenge in moments. And so we're seeing this first, that we need to tackle it on the consumer side. And we're fueling the ecosystem. We're enabling creators, educating them, using AI to make their lives easier. Let's face it, like, making a video is hard, right? And doing all this, work that you do, you running a podcast is hard, right? But now AI tools can make this work much easier for them. So we're starting with the creator, enabling them. That's driving the consumer usage, which we're seeing, which is on the up and up. And on the ad side, we're trying to bring brands and creators together. We've been doing this now for some time, and we're perfecting the art. Right? It's hard work, is what I would say, as a ex-marketer myself. It's really hard work to actually connect creators and brands. It can be time-consuming, right? So again, this is where I do think AI can help creators by making suggestions, auto-tagging, right? How can we do the work for the creator so that their business is enabled is how we're thinking about it.
So I want to get the conversation into the region's digital financial services, which are maturing now with pretty wide-scale QR code adoption. You have a lot of embedded lending and also digital wealth scaling. What are the next breakthroughs would you see in digital financial services in the next decade? Maybe, Florian, I think you always have a point of view on the digital financial services.
Yeah, I think Sapna was already talking earlier on some of the payments trends we're seeing, and we think that's really quite exciting. I think we're now at north of 60% digital payments relative to GTV, gross transaction value. Our 2030 forecast, if anything, at this stage feels a bit conservative. Of course, we're only saying it's in the 70% range. I think what we're seeing is a rapid acceleration, actually, of payments increasingly going digital. And that will, I think, drive efficiency in the ecosystem. With the rise of digital payments, we see MDRs, merchant discount rates, going down year on year, in particular for QR code-based payments. and then also unlock other financial services. So if you think around the rise of digital banks across the region, they will not only make themselves better, but they will also make the broader banking system better because it drives competition, it drives further uplift in the ecosystem. I think wealth management is really exciting. I think it gives a much wider base of the population, call it wealth management, but really it's kind of access to retail asset management solution for a wider swath of population. And it helps drive kind of wealth building and kind of asset building for longer periods for a wider part of the population. And I think that's a very, very positive phenomenon for Southeast Asia overall.
Given all your different vantage points, right? I think of Google as a technology platform. I think of Bain as a research insights engine, right? And helping advisory to services, and Temasek as a capital allocator. How are you all seeing the digital monetization model that's now evolved across the e-commerce and the finance space within the Southeast Asia region? Maybe I'll start with Cassie first.
Yeah, I think one common theme that we have observed really is how different monetization streams are coming together. And different monetization streams are converging, and also they are working specifically for Southeast Asia. So e-commerce, if you kind of take way back when, in more developed economies, the e-commerce on commission. But that has not been necessarily the signature for Southeast Asia or for a lot of developing economies. And so advertising really have to kick in. And as we think about, and as well as sort of, it really goes hand in hand in terms of how we then uplift different merchant have different kind of monetization profiles. And in addition to that, commerce has also come together with finance. We have mentioned that in terms of how we think about, the uprising of digital financial services. And a lot of digital financial services are actually being embedded in the large internet platforms that we see. And even in some of those vertical platforms when, in other parts of the world, the monetization might be, again, through commission, taking some of the economics from one side of the marketplace. But here, we're thinking about new embedded revenue streams that can really, bring more digital inclusion and actually expand TAM. So I would say that from a monetization standpoint, we're seeing that actually works in a unique way for Southeast Asia and especially for our economy that is frankly young, diverse, and very, to Sapna's point, very interested and forward in terms of digital adoption and AI adoption, trying new things.
I think it's an incredible flywheel, right? I think I can, as Cassie said, right, started with the consumer, and then when payments was set up, and now it's it's ubiquitous, right? So then it empowered the users to be able to shop from anywhere. But then the question was, will these businesses be profitable? New streams came out like advertising, right, which is allowing the e-commerce players also to drive online ads. We work with them, right? And they're our biggest partners. And I think that's the thing that has become really unique in this region is the rise of retail media networks.
Yes.
You don't hear everyone around the world talking about retail media networks the way you will hear people in Southeast Asia talking about it. And the report shows like 10x growth in retail media network volume, right? And I only expect that that's going to continue, right? Because of this opportunity that super apps are having here, the openness to super apps, the demand by consumers for super apps. And I think it's just this flywheel. It's been all these things that we've been talking about in the report have come together to lead us to this moment.
So you think it's a compounding effect over the last 10 years of what has gone through? And behavior will change really fast as a result, right? And so, but I think businesses need new models, right? I think that's what it's shown, and that's why things like online media and advertising have grown so much, and businesses have become healthy on the back of that. Sorry.
Yeah, I think not much to add to this. I mean, I think it really comes down to, I think where Sapna was starting, it starts all with the consumer. And I think if you think around what these digital platforms did, they captured our spend. So they captured, if Florian bought a widget for $10, those $10 never went to the manufacturer of the widgets. No, there is the payment cost in the middle. There's advertising for Florian to be aware of the widget. There's a logistics cost in the middle of that chain as well, and a lot of other parts. And so now the digital platforms have been very smart at figuring out what other pockets of these $10 can they capture as they strengthen their platforms. And we'll think that's going to be a trend that continues over time, overall actually to the benefit of the consumer in the region.
I want to dive into the most important subject that everybody's talking about, and I'm also in the heat of it, which is AI. AI is now positioned as the next frontier. I think Southeast Asia is now being labeled as the world's most AI curious region. There's about 680 plus startups, which I'm part of one out of 680, and then 2.3 billion in investments. So I think we are looking to all of the other regions. Is the AI moment now in Southeast Asia real or overhyped? And do you see a path that how fast will they be able to monetize specifically on AI?
It's definitely not overhyped, is what I would say. I mean, we talked about the AI interest already, backed in data, and so the curiosity is there. You also have the demand, right? I think the demand for compute has been significantly rising, which has led to data center capacity growth growing in this region faster than anyone expected. We've seen 4,600 megawatts is what is planned. We are growing multiple fold the rest of Asia Pacific in terms of growth rates. And so as Google, we've invested billions of dollars in data centers here, and it's no signs of stopping anytime soon.
And you have the carbon cost for per query.
Yes, thank you.
As well.
Thank you, yes. And the last thing I would say is it comes back to our businesses finding value, right? I think that's probably the biggest question everyone's asking. And we've seen, 86% of businesses are seeing some kind of cost savings already, but they're also seeing 71% are seeing revenue upside, right? So this is, we reported that last year too. I think, there was data last year that gave us optimism. This year, I would say it's even more. And so it's not just curiosity for curiosity's sake. We are seeing this pay off in terms of business and revenue growth. And you see, the region is leaning into things like agentic commerce, right? And that has led to 3x ROI for some of the businesses that we talked to in the report. So it's definitely not overhyped. And I'm happy you're asking the question. Keep asking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is that Southeast Asia has been a bit late to the party. And I think it's just a natural reaction of kind of this part of the world. Like if you implement a kind of new AI solution and you're dealing with 50,000 employees in your company and you've got the labor cost of $50 an hour, it's a very different story than if you've got what we have in Southeast Asia, fragmented businesses, all a little bit smaller, maybe 1,000 employees, and labor costs that are oftentimes just a fraction of what you face in the West. And so the raw economics of implementing AI didn't fully stack up yet for Southeast Asia, except for early experimenters who really wanted to get their head around this. Now that's changing really, really fast. I mean, like the cost of these models is coming down really fast. And frankly, other companies are starting to do this at scale. And if you're competing with other companies from other markets outside the region or now in the region, and you haven't adopted these solutions, you're starting to fall behind. And so that we think is outside of the strong consumer interest, which has always been there, I think a key catalyst that will drive massive adoption and kind of business activity in this space. To your question of when are people going to make money on this? Well, TBC, I think what's actually exciting here for me, this is a whole next wave of digital economy opportunity for Southeast Asia. If you think around the digital consumer economy, which is what we profiled for the largest part for the last decade, that ship has broadly sailed. I mean, there's big platforms in play. It's been very successful. There's a lot of trends and dynamics playing out there, which is exciting, but there's just incumbents which are at this stage very strong. The AI economy is only just getting started. So the application layer, the type of businesses we see being built around this, unique services in Southeast Asia, the impact this could have for healthcare or education in rural parts of Southeast Asia is just staggering. There's still a shortage of doctors, of teachers. I do think there's a lot of opportunity out there in this space now.
And I would say it might be late to the party, but catching up super fast, right? And I think this is where you see like Grab, for example, 250,000 of their drivers are using their AI driver companion to optimize their routes to get 10 to 20% more revenues, right? This is where that pull, right? And then you're seeing that lead to skilling needs and then the skilling pull, right? We've seen 5-fold increase in skilling in Vietnam in the last year, right? But I think what we're seeing is 5 out of 10 users are saying AI is essential for them, meaning they're using it. So this partnership that they're finding, even in their own day-to-day, is what's going to lead to this. And I wonder if the consumer is moving faster than the businesses.
Yeah, I think one more data point that I would like to add is that every year we run a survey for the key investors in Southeast digital economy, and we asked them not only that 70 to 80% of them have already realized some sort of revenue uplift as well as cost savings, actually 29% of the portfolios actually are able to charge higher because of AI. And just to be mindful, this is not just 29% of AI companies, 29% of overall investor portfolio across different sectors. That is actually a very, very powerful signal that people are not only embedding AI into their products, but there are people who are willing to pay for it. And I think we're just being early innings, as Florian mentioned, of embedding AI into different applications. And people are trying, different companies in different verticals are trying what's the best way to realize the ROI and what's the best way to continue to embed that to enhance the product offering. So that's very encouraging.
So I have a second question for you. So the reports also say that the investors are now coming back. So the capital markets globally still feel a little bit shaky. Do you think the optimism is warranted, or do we still need to see what is happening macroeconomic globally on that?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I would say that the capital market globally is probably not shaky at this point in time. I think, frankly, I think there is definitely macroeconomic volatilities, and that has tested the capital market. But if anything, I think capital market globally have been quite robust. Now, coming back to Southeast Asia, we do see there is optimism, and to us, quite optimism, cautious optimism, whichever way you call it, in the underlying economy. And the reason is that we felt like, as we have been observant and a participant in the ecosystem for the past 10 years, the ecosystem has been healthier than ever, right? In terms of, one, we have achieved our growth target ahead of plan, but not only that, we're able to grow consistently. Ever since we started publishing a revenue figure, it has been growing in line, if not faster, than GMV. And the profit pool have been expanding. You can see that through our report, also through the published figures from the public internet platforms. So overall, that part is healthy. And what is kind of more important to us is that I felt like after 10 years, we are also more aware than ever what is the bottleneck, what could be the bottleneck of the ecosystem. And more so than ever, I think the participants in the ecosystem are working together to address it. We talked about in terms of established exit pathways. And that is something that takes both private capital market and public capital market together to solve, which we are seeing signs of increasing in late-stage funding. And we're also seeing that exchanges coming together to increase integration. So our optimism really is grounded on the underlying health, as well as we're all coming together to solve, to really unbottle the bottlenecks and bring it to the next level.
I just only have this one question before we will go with the quick fire round. The regulation, data infrastructure, and the talent transformation are cited as key enablers for scaling AI. I think which of these three to you is the most important bottleneck to solve, and how should governments and private sector actually respond to these key challenges?
I mean, for me, it's very clearly talent, and maybe not talent in the classic sense. So this is not about more data scientists and a few more data engineers. This is about actually unlocking the people that are already there, that are actually privately experimenting with AI. Again, hands up if you have planned your vacation recently with AI, mix of Gemini and ChatGPT, and unlocking this innovation potential for companies and enabling them to use this in a business context. I think that's really what's going to drive the next wave of growth, both for existing businesses and also unlocking kind of a next wave of founders and startups, which I think will be quite differentiating for the region. Regulation, to be fair, the governments here have done a good job. We see continued activity there. It will be fine. Infrastructure, we share data on just the data center build-out in this region. I think we're actually in very good shape. So really it comes down to unlocking the inherent talent that's around here.
Yeah, I mean, I might disagree, which I never do, with Florian. I'm more optimistic on the talent because of what we're seeing in terms of that. One, the pull. People are upskilling themselves. We even see through talent skilling programs that we're doing where Google is committed to this. Farmers are using AI, right? And we're able to. So I think the talent will get sorted. Also, governments are investing. We're investing. We're very committed in this space. But I will say there's still more work to be done on the governance and streamlining, right? The Digital Economic Framework Agreement there's progress made, but it's not done yet. I would say most success has been in the QR interoperability and making it easier, but I would still say we're still fragmented in places. We make it hard for businesses to trade around the region, and therefore there's still more work to be done on the governance. But work is being done, which is good.
I wouldn't say this is the most important obstacle, but I think one thing I would love to highlight is also that especially in the era of AI, digital infrastructure, although Southeast Asia have seen the fastest growth in digital infrastructure, but digital economy in this day and age really coming hand in hand in green economy. As we think about building more digital infrastructure, we should also be thinking about building sustainable power to generate and deploy those infrastructure at scale. And I think that is important as we think about taking Southeast Asia to the next decade, as we think about AI.
So I'm going to go through 3 very quick questions and then just give me what's the answer on top of your head. The first one, what's the one thing you know about AI in ASEAN from your perspective as a technology platform, research insights engine, and capital allocator that very few do? Who's going to start first? Cassie?
Yeah. Well, that's a very hard question to answer, but I think what I will say from an investor vantage point, right, is that many people think that because ASEAN has a lower cost basis from a labor cost standpoint, businesses may be not as incentivized to deploy AI. But in fact, that when we, as an investor, talk to companies in Singapore, which is developed economy, Indonesia, which is a developing economy, candidly, businesses are equally eager to adopt AI. And I think that what the point is missing is that AI is not just about cost saving. Actually, more is about productivity enhancing and how to then be able to accelerate revenue growth, increase value proposition. So I think that's also go back to our report, which is in terms of we're the most AI curious region, and productivity enhancing is a key value proposition for Southeast Asia as well. We're seeing businesses are equally eager to adopt.
Florian, how about you?
Well, I think it's the fact that to really get full value from AI, I think, again, a lot of people have adopted this both in a private and a business context, but to really get full value really often requires a very complete rewiring of company infrastructure. I mean, like, you can't just kind of go out there and do a bit of research on the next meeting you have. You actually have to rethink your processes, rethink the ways you do business. And I think driving that end-to-end is going to be critical to be successful for AI companies in the future and kind of where everybody's going to use this and to remain competitive. And I think only very few companies in Southeast Asia have truly started on this journey. We're a little bit late to the journey here, as I mentioned earlier, but they're now very rapidly investing behind this. And I think it's critical they get this right to remain competitive out there.
Sapna?
I think the thing I know or that I see is the stories of businesses, and I've heard from so many of them, which is maybe why I'm so optimistic. Sometimes people tell me, "Wow, you're really optimistic," but I'll tell you, I've met small businesses in the Philippines that are using AI tools. There's a woman who has a female-led coffee shop, and she's using AI tools for promotions and for marketing and doing things that she would never have imagined that she's doing before. So I would say the thing that people don't know is the stories. And I wish, I know this is a report all about facts and data, but happy to share more stories next year because I think we have to convince everyone. Yeah. And I want everyone to be as glass half full as me.
I know when I was doing a corporate teaching course in Philippines with sort of a conglomerate of schools, they're using your Google Chromebooks, and the people from this rural school actually is more enthusiastic about AI than where I've seen this happening. So what's the one question you wish more people would ask you about the eConomySEA reports, but they don't? Maybe Florian, you can take this one. What's the one question you wish that they would ask you?
Why is Southeast Asia so underappreciated?
Yes.
I still think that's like a big thing. I think as a region, this is a super attractive space for investment, for consumer trends, and kind of actually seeing what's next. And I think should have a much higher visibility on the global stage.
I wish more people would ask me about video and what we're seeing here. I think it's taken for granted a bit of but I would say this is the most video engaged region in the world, right? And I have to keep telling people it's also, I would say, underappreciated. I mean, this is where social commerce started, and that's why it's evolving here, and we're writing the story for video commerce.
Yeah, I wish people would focus more, less so in terms of some of the challenges, but also focus more in terms of really how much we have come a long way from underlying health of the digital economy. And from an investor's perspective, it is very heartening to see especially as we think about how the entrepreneurship and how we think about overall business model has been adapting and continue for the AI era.
I have to modify my traditional closing question. So this time around, I'm going to ask you, if you look ahead 5 years, 2030, if you could project one consequence or transformation stemming from this year's report to there, and what would you hope would come true and what would it be?
I can start. I mean, we talk a lot about the need for building trust in this AI decade that we're entering, right? I think people are using AI for the questions and the tasks that they say that they're not really as consequential, but for us to really make a transformation on the bigger areas, we will need people to trust, which means businesses will need to build the AI and the technologists will need to build AI in a way that generates that trust, which means putting the user in the driver's seat, helping them with transparency, helping to outline sources of data, also giving them the decision-making power at the right time and helping them feel in control. Otherwise, we may just scratch the surface on the potential. But here we have the opportunity to really make it a collaborative, intelligent economy that really helps everyone.
I would hope that in 10 years from now, as we think about, we really have built an inclusive AI economy. And not just for large enterprises, large platforms, but also for the SMEs that we mentioned early on. And I think that, if you think back, in the last 10 years as we were doing the report, Southeast Asia really leapfrogged the PC era. And we go directly into mobile era. We have a very distinctive user behavior that really we have very innovative businesses that we generate from that. Can Southeast Asia leapfrog again in the AI era? Not only on a consumer space, but also on the enterprise space, because ROI, as we have already pointed out, is very clear. And so this is something that if we can do that, that will be very exciting.
Florian?
Well, I think I will second the points that my two co-speakers here made. And I think the one piece for me would be critical is that as a region, we navigate the AI transition gracefully. I think it's a huge opportunity for us. It's also a risk to employment, frankly. I think of areas like, personally very excited about autonomous vehicles, on which we spend a bit of time talking about. I think it's going to make mobility more accessible, cheaper, and much safer for all of us, both for personal transport, but also to move goods and cargo around the region. So the really grease the wheel of Southeast Asia's digital economy. But in parallel, we need to find employment for potential drivers who get displaced by this. So again, finding a solution here for Southeast Asia that works for this part of the world and helps to unlock that innovation, which will take us to the next level, is going to be really critical and big task for all of us and policymakers in this part of the world.
And I think this is a good place to actually think about 2025, and I'll look forward to see you all in 2026. So, Sapna, Florian, and Cassie, many thanks for coming on the show. Just in closing, very quick 2 questions. First question, any recommendations that have inspired you recently?
So I can give you one. I love cooking, and there's a guy on YouTube, quick hook for our good friends from Google, Vito Iapocelli, I think I'm butchering his name, but he does this great next level pizza dough recipe. Highly recommend for anybody who likes cooking.
Wonderful.
And worth every minute you spend on the recipe.
I also just met a creator recently. Her name is Michelle Carre. She's in the U.S. She does these stunts. She's doing like the stunts that are in movies, and she's doing them herself. But what I find is fascinating is she also shared that people are watching her content on TV now because she's investing a lot in making content. So what has typically been mobile, now people are watching on TV because of the investment. But yeah, she does these incredible stunts, and I need to take more risks sometimes, so it's to help me think about that.
Well, my recommendation...
Don't do stunts. I won't do stunts.
Do not do it at home.
That
right?
is...
So, Cassie?
My recommendation is probably a little bit heavier. I think I most recently reread The Most Important by Howard Marks. It is an investing classic, and I felt like the rereading was very refreshing, and it's refreshing for me because I think in this volatile world, and there's a lot of we're facing a lot of macroeconomic volatility. At the same time, AI era is coming at us. We are in an AI era, and one thing to like is hard to see things clearly when headlights are so close. So it's very important for me to go back to the basics, and I think that's very clarifying.
He has a treasure trove of his letters now. I will just add to that, and also a podcast that talks about all the letters in that book. So my final question, how do my audience find all of you and the report? It's going to be out soon, right?
out tomorrow, 11/11.
11/11.
11/11 at 11 a.m. Yes. And you can find me on LinkedIn, and the report will definitely be there.
LinkedIn and florian.hoppe@bain.com.
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Okay. Got it. So many thanks for this 10th anniversary. Very honored to be here to do it with you all. And of course, I wish you all the success, and I will look forward to the next 10 years with the report again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.